How to deal with a narcissistic boss. This is for Black women in toxic jobs. It's a follow up to my previous video about the anatomy of a narcissistic person. So I just want to keep in mind that although I am talking about narcissism, I'm talking about it in the sense of a personality style. I'm not diagnosing anyone, even though I am a licensed clinical psychologist. So if you don't know me already, I'm Dr. Kamani. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist, a toxic job survivor, but more importantly, I'm a toxic job liberator for Black women. I'm also the co host of the Job Liberation Virtual Summit for Black women. If you want to access that in terms of learning how to prepare your exit plan from a toxic job so that you'll know how to replace your income, what to do about your health insurance, your life insurance, retirement, all those things, then that will be in the description section. So that's a brief overview about me. So again, this is a follow-up video to the video I did yesterday about the anatomy of a narcissistic person. So this video and the previous video really taps into videos done by Dr. Romani. You need to check out her channel. I will put the videos that I'm referencing in the description section here. So in this video that I'm doing, which talks about how to deal with a narcissistic boss, this is kind of my interpretation of some of the things she talked about, because she talked about narcissism in a broader way in terms of maybe narcissistic family members or partners. So I am speaking of it about it from the perspective of a narcissistic boss. So I'm going to break down, just as she did, just some background information about narcissistic styles, as well as some signs that you might be impacted by it, or ways that it might show up in your own functioning, as well as some steps about what to do, how to handle this situation, particularly if it's in the workplace. So, one of the things that she said, Dr. Romani said, and she was actually on Mel Robbins' podcast. So again, I'll put that information in the description section. But Dr. Romani was talking about with narcissism, we often hope with anyone that they are going to change. So we have that sense of hope that they're going to change. But the narcissist is generally not going to change because number one, they don't see a problem with their behavior, and they've been entitled and then they've functioned this way for such a long time. They don't see a problem with that. So we have to be mindful that more than likely their behavior is not going to change. So she talked a lot about that. So keep that in mind. We know it's a problematic behavior, but more than likely it's not going to change. Okay. The other thing is she talked about the importance of recognizing that the narcissistic person, the person with those personality style, that's change. However, it's important that maybe we change and recognizing how we view the situation. So, not that we change our personality or change what we're doing, in the sense that maybe we view the situation differently and maybe not try to think about the perspective of you can change this person. Okay. So, again, I'm talking from the perspective of like a narcissistic boss. So, she said that a narcissistic person who has these personality styles, they see everything is about them, right? So they're like this, and the world kind of goes around them. And so they can only see things from their perspective. She also mentioned that this narcissistic personality style often develops from childhood trauma or some other negative experience that that person has had in their life. And it may have developed from the child or the narcissistic person as they were growing up. Their parent made them seem or made them think that they were like the center of the universe and that everybody kind of needed to bow down to them, that they were so different from everybody else. So that kind of planted the seed of that sense of entitlement and that they're better than other people. So again, as she straight stated, they don't change because they don't want to. They don't want to change. They don't see the need to change. And so the need for us to change, if you're in this situation with a narcissistic boss, the need for you to change and really challenge the gaslighting that you may be encountering in that situation. So I have a lot of notes. You're gonna see me looking down a lot more than usual. And so when we approach the gaslighting, you might need to talk to someone else to kind of reality test, because the narcissistic boss will get all in your head and make you think that you're the problem, but they are actually the problem. Okay. Um, and there's a possibility that those people with narcissistic personality types or styles, they may be more at risk if they have a caregiver, right? So if their caregiver, really brought them up in a way to be that way, then they may become narcissistic in terms of their behaviors. And then people who may have been raised by a narcissistic caregiver may be more at risk for being around narcissistic people and have a hard time recognizing for what it is and kind of getting away or trying to break away from someone who engages in this narcissistic behavior. So I thought that was really interesting. So, signs that you may experience if you're around someone who is narcissistic, these are some kind of signs that you can tell or evaluate if this is what's happening to you. So, think about if this is happening to you in the workplace. So, you may experience shame, anxiety, self doubt, which really goes along with that gaslighting. So, thinking like, am I not doing something right? Is there something wrong with me? Self blame, confusion about what's going on. That's a telltale sign of gaslighting. Helplessness, that you can't make the situation better. Powerlessness, frustration, sleeping problems, problems with concentration, lack of self care. So you're so busy trying to please the narcissistic person or the boss that you lose sight of your own self care. So again, your identity gets wrapped up into pleasing people at the job, and you again lose sight of yourself and your own well being. Feelings on edge a lot, hyper vigilant, kind of looking around you, waiting for the next bad thing to happen. Like especially if your boss is like explosive. Um, Always ready to fix. You're always trying to fix a situation, changing yourself to please others. So again, constantly contorting yourself, feeling like you're not good enough, and start internalizing that perception and trying to fix everything. Loneliness, isolation, and the sense that you're the problem, right? That you're the weird person, as she mentioned. So those are some of the things in terms of the background about narcissistic personality styles, and also the signs that you may be experiencing, right? These signs that, there something's not right. Okay. So you're starting to feel these things. Maybe look at what is going on in your environment. Who are the people you're interacting with? And it may be that you're interacting with someone who exhibits these narcissistic personality styles in the workplace. Okay. Particularly a narcissistic boss. So, some steps that she shared that I want to share with you about how to deal with a narcissistic boss. So, one, she mentioned, Dr. Romani mentioned, see it for what it is. So, have radical acceptance of this is what the situation is. It is not going to change, and letting go of the hope that something's going to change. So, letting go of the hope that maybe if you work harder or if you do a certain way that things are going to change with a narcissistic boss. It's not, because that is their personality. It's not going to change. And so you recognizing that may be a painful process. And she mentioned that you can see that this behavior is hurting you in some ways, and you recognizing that doesn't mean that you are accepting their behavior. It doesn't mean that you agree with that person's behavior. It doesn't mean that you're okay with them hurting you. It is a radical acceptance of this is really how it is and it's not going to change. Okay, so that's number one, the first step. Number two, she mentioned that um, when you come to this realization, you may experience a a grieving of the hope that things would have been different, a grieving of, you thought that you could make certain changes in that environment, but you may not be able to. And allowing yourself to grieve that is very important. So she said that it's very difficult because when we come into a workplace, we have all these dreams and hopes of what we're going to do. And it's letting go of that dream, which may take a while. So it's like a grief process, kind of like when somebody passed away, but not the same. But allowing ourselves to grieve, because many times we think, I just want to be out of the situation, whatever. But it has taken a toll on you. So allowing yourself to go through that process. And something she said too was, when you are in these experiences and you are encountering or working with a narcissistic boss, and you may start going through the grief process, it can be complicated because you don't have a sense of closure about what happened to you. More than likely, that narcissistic boss is not going to apologize to you. They're not going to own up to anything they did to you. So you kind of just still hold this kind of resentment that this person has done this to you, and you don't see any real consequence. So you may even experience, just as I did, that this person may be protected by the job, by the system and the job. Again, toxic system. This person may be promoted at the job, and that sense of resentment that they could hurt you and other people and still be promoted in the workplace. So that feeling of, this is just not right, right? When you think about, what's right, like, how is it that this person is doing terrible things to people, but the system is promoting them? So grieving that is important. And what she noted too, that's important, is that sometimes when these things happen to us in the workplace, we keep thinking about it, we're thinking about it, thinking about it. So that's called rumination. So when we ruminate about things, and it has nowhere to go, because we're constantly trying to think about, why did this person do this to me? You're never really going to figure out. So that rumination just stays, and you're not able to come up with a solution, because number one, you're probably not going to fully understand why this person did this to you. You're probably not going to get any apology. You're probably not going to get anything from the system to correct what has happened to you. So there's no solution to that. So as you sit in that rumination ongoing, what Dr. Ramani mentioned is that can turn into depression. So we have to be mindful of that we don't stay so overly consumed in what has happened to us in the workplace. We need to be able to kind of process what has happened to us, kind of digest it, get it out of our system, which is helpful in therapy, to get that out of your system. Because we might want to talk to our friends and family, and they may be helpful, but sometimes they might get tired of hearing us talk about it so much, or they don't really know how to help us to that degree. You need professional help. So please seek therapy if you're experiencing that. So the rumination can contribute to depression, as well as that feeling of powerlessness, that there was nothing that you could do to protect yourself, but there is. You can protect yourself by having boundaries with that narcissistic person, and also thinking about ways to remove yourself from the situation. Because as I said before, as Dr. Ramani said, more than likely this person is not going to change, okay? The third step that was mentioned by Dr. Ramani is discernment. So when you interact with a narcissistic boss, try to prepare yourself for what you're going to expect, because there's a typical pattern that you often see with these people. So prepare yourself, like before you go into a meeting, before you have interaction with this person, kind of pep talk yourself into, okay, so this is probably what's going to happen. And if that happens, and then I'm going to do this, kind of planning to some degree about what you may do. And don't fall into the illusion that things are going to be drastically different the next time you meet with them. More than likely, it's going to be the same kind of MO, the same pattern of behavior. Okay. So be realistic about your expectations in these interactions. Okay. So 1, again, radical acceptance. 2, grieving. So the grief process. 3, really honoring discernment. Okay. The 4th step is utilize self-care. So after you have these interactions with a narcissistic boss, it can be draining, because you're probably going through like these mental gymnastics to prepare yourself to go into the meeting. As you're in the meeting, you're probably really moderating and monitoring yourself, how you're responding and what you're going to do. It's exhausting. Okay. So after the meeting, Can you find some time to engage in some type of self-care activity? Deep breathing, visualize something positive, visualize something else you want to do, visualize a vacation, visualize something else, some type of self-care, and maybe after work, what are the other things that you could do outside of work to help you in terms of self-care? So that might be smelling a flower. It might be playing with your pet. It might be talking with a friend or family member. Think about what type of self care you can also utilize after being around a narcissistic boss, because as I said before, it can be emotionally draining. And the fifth thing that was recommended in terms of how to deal with a narcissistic boss was, what is the meaning that you derive from this experience? So, for example, from my experience, the meaning that I derive from that is I was not meant to be there. That job, I had outgrown that job. That was meant for me to do bigger and better things. It was meant for me to become a toxic job liberator for Black women. So, that is the meaning that I make out of my encounters with a narcissistic boss. So again, that final step is, what meaning do you derive from that experience? Okay. So I just want to give an overview of how to deal with a narcissistic boss. Again, I will put those videos that I mentioned in the description section. And I'm asking you to please give this video a thumbs up. Share this video with at least 2 other Black women. And the reason I say that so much is you cannot imagine how many Black women are also in a toxic job situation. I am floored by how many Black women reach out to me, comment on my videos, email me, clients who tell me about these horrific toxic work experiences. So that's why I say that. That's why I say please share this video with other Black women, because so many of us have been harmed and are being harmed in a toxic work environment. I really want us to know that there is hope. There are resources available to us. And I'm just asking you to help share that information. Help us share this with other Black women so that we don't develop that sense of being helpless and hopeless about our work situation. Okay. So yes, share this video with at least 2 other Black women. If you haven't already subscribed to my channel, please do so. Also, turn the notification bell, because that's when you know when I'm uploading a new video or I'm going live or anything like that. Okay. So I will see you later. Okay. Take care. Bye-bye.